Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mappers Episode 2. I, of course, am the host of the show, Nursky, and then joining me on the show, our regular show hosts, we have none other than Prodigy. We have, of course, Supuru Man, and then Iron Man, and then, of course, we have Iron Man's dog making a special guest appearance on the show as well. So, how's everybody doing today?
Fantastic. By fantastic, I mean I have a little bit of a cold, so if you hear me coughing off in the background, that's why.
So
try to be quiet, though.
We did want to get the show started earlier, but Skype decided it would not allow video anymore. It was like, all right, guys, you got to pay for video now. So I've got like this crazy setup going on. So hopefully it holds up throughout the show. So if we do have any technical difficulties, this is like my fair warning to everybody that I'm using Google Hangouts for video and like Skype for audio, and I'm going to get it all figured out exactly next week. So I'm probably going to make a switch off of Skype entirely because, honestly, like in a lot of ways, I hate Skype anyways. So
Yeah.
But also on the show today, we actually have a special guest, and I'll actually bring up our topics now. So today, our special guest on the show is going to be none other than Barrin, author of the post Breath of Gameplay in SC2. It's made a lot of waves in the community. We talked a little bit about it last week, but Barrin got a hold of us, said he wanted to come on the show to discuss it a little bit more. And if I start cracking up because of Iron Man's dog, I can't help it. So go ahead, Barrin, and say hi to everybody.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Barrin. I'm a map maker and a moderator on Team Liquid.
All right, so to kick off the show today, guys, I'm going to ask Barrin just a couple of questions, do a little mini interview here with Barrin, and then I'm going to open up the floor to, of course, all of our show hosts. And we're just going to kick things off discussing the fewer resources per base concept with Barrin today. A little bit of a follow-up, like I said, to last week's segment. So to kick things off, I got to ask you, Barrin, what prompted the initial idea? I know it's in the post and stuff, but go ahead and let us know. What prompted your initial thought process that, like, I got to make this really huge wall of text post to tell the community why I think we need to make a change?
Well, basically, I've been following the Brood War scene for about 4 years now, and I've always liked the games that have been played on there. I've actually been playing since it came out, pretty much. But I've been, watching StarCraft 2 since it came out too, and like, I've just been watching trends, and like, I see that there's just something wrong with the game, and fundamentally, like, I know there's plenty of good games. There's plenty of good games in StarCraft 2. I really can appreciate some of them. Some are really nice. They're really nice in their own way, but there's still tendencies towards, like, what I call a death ball formula, where basically players just have to sit on a few bases, and they can only a few bases, as opposed to Brood War, where you needed even more to get the same amount of income. And they'll just sit on these few bases, really hard to attack them, and they just sit there and make a big army, and And obviously, it's been progressing more than that as time goes on. People learn more and more timing attacks and stuff like that. But for the most part, there is a strong tendency towards that.
All right, and as a little bit of a follow-up question, now that the post has been up for, something like 2 weeks now, you've gotten a lot of reaction from the community. I mean, there's been this huge upswell, people who disagree with it, agree with it, people who are testing the concept on a lot of the maps you put out there. What's your reaction so far to some of the responses you've gotten from the community in general this far? I believe you tuned in and watched our show last week a little bit. Yeah. So just what's your general reaction to all the responses so far? You feeling good about the responses and the testing? Would you like to see more? What's your general reaction so far to what you've seen?
Well, the general reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. I can't really express enough how much I appreciate everyone's appreciation, basically. I mean, this is a game for all of us, obviously. So it's just really nice, basically.
All right, so at this time, we're just going to open up the floor to discussion with all the hosts. If anybody in particular wants to start, go ahead and just chime in. We are going to be changing up the format a little bit. Going to be adjusting the show constantly for everybody tuning in, of course. So if anybody has any specific questions for Barrin or even concerns or whatever about the concept of fewer resources per base, go ahead and shoot it out there.
I think I have one. With all the testings, do you find the best amount of minerals and gases, like in the main, two gases or one high yield? With all the testings, do you find out what's the best?
I'm not actually comfortable with what we have right now, which is 6 minerals, 1 high yield gas, raised so that that's actually exactly 25% less total income, but with the exact same total amount of resources per base. I'm not really satisfied with this. I really feel like there's really just not enough workers per base. I did want to reduce it a little bit, but that was a little bit too much. But I am thinking about some of the next iterations of this, and what I'm feeling is I'm really strongly feeling that we might just need to each worker returns 5 per chip right now, and I think we might just reduce it to 4, and that might be plenty, and keep it at 8 minerals. And we'll have to do something to the gas. I'm not sure about that part yet, but that's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, that kind of brings up a question of mine. A lot of the test games that I've done, people were saying that you have too much gas, which leads me to wonder, why is it necessarily a bad thing to have 2 gas geysers in the main base only, and maybe just 1 high yield after that in every other base? Because that also helps with 1 base scouting. Now you can, tell between a Hellion opening and a 1-on-1 build, and all that kind of stuff. So why is it necessarily bad to just have 2 regular gas geysers in the main base?
Well, I definitely understand the benefit of having it like that, but my biggest problem, basically, I always try to work within these confines whenever I try to do anything, really anything in map making. It really should be simple to learn, basically. Like if a new player was to come up here and they're like, hey, these 2 gases, they're weaker than the rest of the gases on the map. That's just not really intuitive. It's hard for them to learn. I mean, I personally, I don't, I wouldn't mind. Me as a player, I'm very competitive. I could learn that kind of stuff. But as for new people, it just doesn't click for them, and it really is important to cater to them.
Well, one of the things about having a high yield gas is that I've seen a lot of people, and as you've noticed for the last couple days on the thread, there's been quite a few theory crafting going on, and a lot of people are saying that either Protoss is very strong, or Zerg can just go for a roach Zergling all in and win every single time, because they have so much gas early on that they can do it earlier. So I mean, is that necessarily true, or is that something that's kind of still being experimented with?
Well, I did actually respond to this in the thread. I do think that Protoss, and in my flawed theoretical, perception of the game, I mean, it's pretty good, but it's still flawed. I think that Protoss is actually probably having problems with this, and it does need more testing to actually prove that, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. Maybe if we switch things around, like I was saying earlier, with more workers per base, maybe Protoss will have better chance, or they'll be spending more time. They have more time to Chrono Boost their workers, because I know they have a problem with that. They're like, oh, I have all these workers,
I mean, I saw that they posted that there was, I don't remember which guy it was who was organizing it, but somebody's trying to organize a tournament. Has it looked like so far that he's going to be able to get some decent level players to get into that tournament so that they can actually kind of test out some of the concept in more of a competitive environment yet, or like how so far does that seem to be shaping up? Because I think something like that would be, I mean, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, a world's better test than just people randomly playing a game here and there on it, right?
Um, well, we're definitely trying to. Well, me, of course. I'm trying to get more tournaments running and stuff like that. Like, it's actually really nice because people have like been coming to me and have been asking me if what they can do to help and like giving me advice and stuff. Like, it's really nice. Like, just yesterday, someone has been close in contact with the creator of Pete Mode, and I've actually been looking at Pete Mode Map of the Week specifically, hoping that maybe Iculus Lizard would accept the FRB maps into the Map of the Week for there, because that's really popular. It would put it on the front page instantly, and that would be amazing. And this person who's been talking to Iculus Lizard has been saying that he can... Well, actually, Iculus has even responded back, and like I think we might even make it happen. What's going to happen is, first the maps are going to go on the Map of the Week, and you can upvote them. And if they win the poll, because it's not going to be only FRB maps, but if if FRB map wins the poll, then it'll go right on to Pete Mode. That's going to be good. There's also this tournament called the FRB Grand Tournament. Definitely sign up for that if anyone likes this stuff. That's going to be really awesome too.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah.
And there's even more coming. So
Yeah. So, as far as testing is concerned, have you been able to pick up any momentum from like professional players? Have they expressed any interest or have helped out with testing or planning on signing up in this tournament?
Well, no, not really. Players, this is really just not up their alley. It's not that it's not up their alley, obviously, but it's just that they're pro players. They play to make money, and right now the money is not in FRB maps; it's in regular maps. So this is just a waste of time for them almost. So it's ideal to get like Masters players, hopefully, lots of Masters and hopefully Grandmasters too.
Yeah,
You know,
I hear
honestly,
that.
I'm sorry, Prod. I just have a quick question. One of the things that just recently started coming to the surface is people are saying that Zerg they can't get as many workers as they normally can on 8 mineral 2 gas, and so that kind of stacks up larva. Now, some people are saying that Zerg is having a little bit too much larva, and they're wondering if it's possible to fix that and say maybe one less larva comes out per inject. Is this something that's worth looking at, or is this just something that we haven't really adjusted to, and that would be too game breaking?
Well, we actually haven't really talked too much about this in the thread, but it really does. Like, keeping up on injects and keeping up on chrono boost and keeping up on mules, it actually mostly breaks injects, but that's like the macro mechanic of the race, and that's partly what makes it harder to play. And taking that away, that's not really what was supposed to happen. Obviously, what would need to happen really is Blizzard would need to pick up on this and fix it themselves, because I mean, I can only go so far, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that problem would be mostly fixed if I were to go back up to 8 minerals and reduce it to 4 per trip.
Have you actually experimented with that at all yet, or is that in the future?
No, that's in the future. I'm
Okay.
still coming up with a way to do the gas, because it's really hard to come up with a way to... I mean, like, what am I going to do, reduce the gas to 3 per trip? That's a 20% reduction in minerals, but a 25% reduction in gas. So, I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on having gold bases in the 6 mineral 1 high yield gas theory? Because, you know, my map Crosspoint, it's the I think it's one of two maps that actually have a gold base, but mine is mineral only. Is that, and we also know that mules were adjusted to not abuse the gold. So I mean,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on gold being implemented with this, with knowing that there's also high yield gases? I mean, is this essentially the same as just having a gold base instead of two blue bases, for example, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have no problem at all with gold bases. But that is after the mule nerf, because before that was ridiculous. That would have been absolutely unacceptable if they didn't nerf the mule. But I'm totally down with testing out gold bases. I think they'd probably be fine.
Hmm.
I think.
I mean,
Oh, go
I
ahead,
personally like the gold bases as long as there's
Yeah.
a risk involved, such
Yeah.
as they're up against a cliff on Crosspoint, and that's something that I like. Whereas, on Zelnaga Caverns, they're out toward the middle of the map, but there's really no real threat to it as long as you can protect it. So, I don't know. A lot of people do hate on gold bases, so I didn't know if that would make any sort of an impact or a change having six minerals and one high yield gas. So,
Right. I wanna make one thing quick real fast. I mean, one thing clear real fast. To everyone, basically, like, I really do like StarCraft 2. Like, I don't want to change the units around. I mean, I do think it could be better, but the units themselves, I mean. But I do like a lot of the mechanics that were introduced in StarCraft 2, and I'm not like some kind of Brood War elitist, so this is about making StarCraft 2 better. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely down with anything.
Have you
with
noticed a
potential.
lot of feedback that from people who are just saying, well, then go play Brood War, this isn't Brood War, stop trying to change it, etc.?
Yeah, that pretty much stopped not very long after. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I do go over this basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like at the warning at the top. I'm like, I will.
Yeah.
This isn't about Brood War, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've said that several times. I mean, that like it's not that you want StarCraft 2 to be Brood War. You just want it to feel as interesting as Brood War was for you, right? You don't want it to feel
Exactly.
like two people maxing out their armies, smashing them together, may the best composition win, and then the game's over.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, and that on an overall level has nothing to do with Brood War. Really, that
Right.
could be applied to any game. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to take a lot more testing. It definitely seems like Blizzard's shown some moderate interest in the concept, depending on how the community reacts to it. Hopefully the tournament stuff
Right.
will help to further expound upon the testing so that you can maybe discover flaws in it, be it balance-related flaws or just map-related flaws, potentially. Hopefully give you more ideas, because I think at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't realize with this concept, that I really took to this concept right away, which is why I wanted to talk about it on the show, even for a second follow-up here with you, is that whether this idea works or not, it's good to see people thinking more outside the box and trying new things out rather than just by default staying towards the standards. Whether it's build orders, map design, making a custom map where you tweak unit balance to try and prove a concept or something. If you have an idea out there that's maybe not considered the norm, it's something that's a good idea to maybe put together, see if you can maybe get some people to test it, and see if it's worth looking into more. And I think the 6 mineral, 1 high yield, or 7 mineral, or 8 mineral reduced worker efficiency, all the different things that have come out of this topic could only be good for StarCraft 2 as it evolves, to further try and push the game as it evolves to become something that you could put side by side with a game like Brood War. And even if it's never Brood War, because that's obviously not the intent, it's at least just as amazing as people felt playing that game, and it's the best game StarCraft 2 can possibly be. And I think that's what's really important thing about stuff like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and someone interviewed me yesterday and posted it on Team Liquid, and like one of the last things they asked me was, what's the best thing about FRB? And to me, the best thing about FRB is that Well, first of all, to understand the best thing about FRB, you need to understand what most people think is the best thing about StarCraft 2. And a lot of people, well, not most people, but a lot of people say that the MBS, the mass unit selection, mass building selection, and autocast and all that stuff
Right.
makes it less mechanical and more thinking, and it's more cerebral. And I really agree with that. I think there's really something there. I think there's also something there for the mechanical, but I'm really down with the whole cerebral thing. That's totally cool. And
Yeah.
the best thing about FRB is it preserves that while also leaning less towards the death balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really pretty much is like the big problem plaguing StarCraft 2 at the moment is like they took away the mechanical overhead to a certain degree, so now you can apply all of that extra mental processing power and concentration, what have you, to more intellectual parts of the game. But when you can just make an army that has 4 Colossus and attack move and then just collect your free win, then all of that extra potential for the game is just completely thrown away. And I don't know, it kind of sucks. I mean, you can change maps themselves as much as you want, but I mean, at some point, like when you get to 5 bases and you have a full 3-base economy, I mean, there's nothing stopping me from making 3 robotics and going CCC and just chrono boosting a few times, and then going, oh, I have a bunch of Colossus, I win. So, an idea like this to try and change the way some of those timings work, and change the way like things get to that point, because, you know, for example, in Brood War, you wouldn't see people show up with carrier, like a full carrier fleet in 15 minutes. It just didn't happen. And in a game like this, where players are maxed at 15 minutes,
Sooner
it changes
even.
a lot of the dynamics, right?
Yeah.
I've seen DRG max out in like 11 or 12 minutes on just
Yeah.
like pure
Yeah.
roach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane if you think about it compared... I mean, I hate to use the compared to Brood War saying, because then people go, oh, you just want this game to be Brood War. But I mean, compared to how those type of games played out in those tense moments and some of those small skirmish and zone control battles you would get, StarCraft 2 in a lot of ways is much more like player has X push, player either holds or doesn't hold X push, or neither player pushes, and then they max out on army and then they crash together. But pretty much always the game comes down to like one specific timed push or one giant battle. It's lacking, and I think a lot of people who didn't watch the Brood War days maybe don't understand this as well, or maybe just haven't experienced yet that it's lacking that back and forth skirmish concept that there was a lot of in Brood War. There'd be tons of battles throughout a Brood War game that might lead up to one max on max battle, but more often than not would be like all these little skirmishes as people try and vie for that little bit of an extra edge, so towards the end of the game when they finally can make that big push towards the end, they would then win. But there was all this just awesome build up to it, and StarCraft 2 has lacked that in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I actually remember a couple seasons ago, I think this 3 seasons ago, I was playing on Metalopolis and against a Terran player, and he just let me sit back and I macroed up like crazy, and I was a lot slower back then. And even as a more slower player, like APM wise, I started getting Ultralists at 12 minutes with 3/3 upgrades. 12 minutes. You don't see that today because people are harassing a lot more, and you certainly will not see that in the fewer resources per base. That's why I really like this, because I watched a replay of a 37-minute Terran versus Zerg, and it was all Marine tank, it was all drops, it was a lot of Mutalisk, Baneling, Zergling combination build-up. There was never a moment where they had 200 until the 30-minute mark. And that's when Ultralists started coming out, and that's why I really, really like this. I really support it. It's something that really changes it, because every 6 mineral, 1 high yield gas game I watch, it feels like there's always something new that's happening. It's like I never understand what the players are going to do next, because they're always just moving out here and there. There's little squads here and there. And it was weird because I played Ohana earlier today, which is an 8 mineral 2 gas map, against one of my friends, and he just sat on 2 base the whole game, and it was a 20-minute game. And he was Protoss, and he just sat back, and I grabbed
You can
5
make
bases.
mothership.
And and then I see Protoss on these 6 mineral 1 high yield gas maps, and they're going on 4 or 5 bases. So I definitely love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think at the end of the day, people should test the concept, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. Whether you
Yeah.
think it won't work or think it will work, go test the concept, find out for yourself, and give feedback, right? Because that's what we're going to need at the end of the day. Because I think people don't give, in some respects, Blizzard enough credit for listening to the community, because they might not react very quickly to what the community's big pushes are, but I think it's been proven by like the fact that they've added GSL maps, they've added some of you guys' maps, that they eventually will come around to what the community's asking for. They might try and do it themselves. I think you saw that with like the map process throughout SC2. But eventually, if you test the concept long enough and something eventually comes out of it that's proven to be good and useful, it's going to at least catch their attention enough that they might either internally try it out themselves or they'll take a look at what's going on with it. And if you want community-generated ideas to get their attention, you just got to really support them, try them out and test them and do your due diligence so that they can go, okay, you know what, maybe there's something to that and maybe I'll go check it out. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing is for against it, for it, whatever. Don't just sit around and theory craft ideas, jump in a thread and say, oh, this won't work because I've decided so, because I am the all-knowing zombie. I mean, go test it. Get some friends, and if you think it's the worst thing ever, go prove it's the worst thing ever. Do whatever that epic build that you think should just crush everything is, and prove that the concept works, and then go in the post and say, see, here's 5 replays where I just did this to a guy of equal level to me, and we're both Masters players. This is proof that this might be a problem with these maps. So at bare minimum, even if it doesn't like just completely kill the concept, people will understand that, hey, you know, there's at least this problem with it, so if we were ever going to use this, then it would require other changes to make it work, and then you get into the is it worth it, you know, is it really doable type of scenario. But, I mean, you got Heart of the Swarm coming out soon, so ideas like this, if they're ever going to get tested by Blizzard, I mean, that's going to be the time to do it as they get closer and closer to whenever they're going to release the beta for that.
Yeah.
Well, they better do it in Heart of the Swarm, because if they wait until Legacy of the Void, there's just going to be more balancing to do. Because they're going to have to start balancing the new units for Legacy of the Void, and that's just going to create a bigger mess, I think. So Heart of the Swarm, in my opinion, it's either Heart of the Swarm or it's probably never.
Although,
one point I want to make.
Yeah, go for it.
Honestly, this really isn't. I mean, obviously, we do want balance, but this isn't necessarily about balance at this point. Balance can happen later. I mean, honestly, it'd be best to have it as balanced as possible to begin with, and that should be done in alpha or beta tests of Heart of the Swarm. But it's really more about, is this more fun to play, and is, like Blizzard said, is it fun to watch? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, when I emailed Blizzard a week and a half ago and asked them, you know, what they thought of it and everything like that, they mentioned at the end of the email, which I didn't mention last week, they said, thanks for the link. So in other words, okay, you gave us the link, maybe we're going to pay attention, we're going to read up on it. There's a whole, you know, we don't really know what's going to happen. They just said thanks for the link, so we can at least hope that, okay, yeah, they're going to follow up on it and kind of experiment with it themselves internally. So that's something that we can kind of rest assured on at least.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think at this point, unless anybody has any other questions they want to talk about with this with Barrin, we'll probably take a short break and then move on to our next topic of discussion. So is there any other questions for Barrin before we move on to the next topic? And by the way, for the show audience, Barrin said he's going to hang out for the rest of the show too, so he'll be with us for the follow-up discussions as well. But any other questions for Barrin about the fewer resource bases before we take a quick break and move on?
Nope.
No?
I don't think so.
I've already asked all my questions.
Sounds good, guys. All right, so what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to take a really quick break. It's literally going to be about a 1-minute break. When we come back, we're going to be switching up topics, going to be talking a little bit about the map tournament map pools that are in StarCraft 2. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back in just a minute or two with more of Mappers. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be right back. Alright, everyone, and welcome back to Mappers Episode 2. And we're going to be actually moving on to our next topic of the day. So we'll just cross off Barrin and his fewer resource bases. But he is still with us in audio form. No webcam for Barrin, but he will still be with us for the discussion. So we're going to be moving on to our next topic. And I think actually Prodigy, I think it was, posted a pretty interesting picture that I'm going to bring up on the screen in just a second here. But we're going to be talking about tournament map pools, and specifically in talking about tournament map pools, we're going to be kind of looking at the concepts of the map pools that a lot of tournaments are using, because they are vastly different from tournament to tournament. GSL, MLG, IPL, and ASL have very, very differing map pools, and some of the ages of the maps can range quite a bit in the various different tournaments. So we're going to be looking at some different ideas. Should older maps be replaced? Should maps have, balance issues get thrown out? What makes a good map pool? We're going to be talking a little bit about this. But before we do, I'm going to bring this up on the desktop because I thought it was hilarious. It says, no more Metalopolis, and it's like one of those old, communist Soviet Russia. We drink vodka, and we want no more Metalopolis. We get rid of Metalopolis. It's no good. It's killing esport. So anyways, bringing back up the main screen here. So let's talk about this a little bit. I don't know who wants to start out, but obviously all the different tournaments have vastly different map pools. And I guess the best place we could start is if you guys had a beef with any map pool in general, or the general outlook of map pools, I guess you could say. I guess we'll look at that, like what your concerns are about map pools, and we'll go from there. So if anybody wants to start us out, go for it.
Metalopolis sucks.
Prodigy.
Die meta.
I guess,
Yes,
Prodigy, you talked first, so go ahead and expound upon that.
I'm pretty sure I was about to get trolled by Superman. Yeah, MLG's map pool for both the arena and their recent Winter Championships is, simply put, it's garbage.
The dog
And
agrees.
The dog agrees with me. So, strictly speaking, the main culprit here is Metalopolis. For those of you who are new to StarCraft 2 or didn't play in the beta or anything like that, Metalopolis has quite literally been here since day one. It was introduced, like, I'm pretty sure as soon as the beta came out. It was one of the very first maps. And just as a frame of reference, the beta came out in about February 2010. It's now March 2012, and we're still using Metalopolis. Now, no, they're still using Metalopolis. I shouldn't say we, because most people aren't crazy. But I'm just going to talk quickly about the consequences of having old maps in the map pool. I guess, yeah, Barrin's saying in chat right now that Metalopolis was not in Season 3, but that's besides the point. The point is we're still playing it, and it sucks! So the consequences of having a map being in the map pool for so long is one of the reasons StarCraft is so interesting is because the game is constantly evolving. There's new maps being injected. Metagame is constantly evolving. Things are constantly shifting. We've got 2 expansions ahead of us, so things are going to be changing afterwards. And there's always something interesting to look forward to, which is a big part of the reason why Barrin's FRB stuff is so interesting. But if you use the same map for 2 years, you're just throwing all of that out the window. In a perfect world, you're going to have an RTS game that is, if you just assume that it's balanced and there's not going to be any more balance changes coming, aside from expansions, but for the sake of the argument, we'll ignore that even. The only things that's going to change is going to be the players and the maps. And if you take the maps out of that, the players are going to figure the maps out, and you're just going to see the same thing over and over. And that is just boring. I'm not going to watch it. I watched very few MLG games this weekend, partially because I was covering a tournament, and partially because I'm not interested in watching games on Metalopolis. I've seen it all before, and if there's something new, it's just to me, it's like, oh well, that's kind of cool. He made 40 roaches instead of 39 at 8 minutes. That's great. But yeah, old maps, not a good look.
Yeah,
pass my cup to somebody else.
There's definitely something to be said about that. I mean, I think it's important to note that I mean, if you look back in time through the history of StarCraft, like you were talking about, a lot of ways tournaments evolved the gameplay was through the map pools. I mean, they literally had maps that were like, we're going to make a map that's going to be designed specifically to make Flash lose so that he doesn't win all the time. Like, there was literally maps in the map pool that had that mindset in the design because the game had gotten so figured out. And without changing up the maps got extremely figured out over time, and the players just were like, okay, it's this map. I do this on this map, and this is really good on this map in this matchup, and this is my best bet. And then you start to, eventually over time, we'll get into that recycling period. Now, I don't know if Iron Man or Superman, though, Supuru Man, I'm going to eventually get that dude, I promise you. But I will call you Superman at least 10 more times before I get it right. I promise you. But I'm kind of curious if you guys have any follow-up to what Prodigy said.
MLG map pool is crap. It's complete garbage. I think they were like one of the top tournaments for like a while, and I think they still are. But map pool wise, they've completely just fallen behind. And I just think that they should just start getting the ball rolling because GSL and NASL are now using newer maps, and so is IPL. Mm-hmm. And FRB is experimenting with something completely different. So what's the risk involved? I was speaking with the head administrator of DreamHack the other day, and we got on the subject of maps in tournaments. And I asked him, like, DreamHack is a really great tournament, and they would piggyback GSL and IPL and MLG and all that kind of stuff. They didn't have their own set map pool. And I asked them, I'm like, for a while you guys would just piggyback these tournaments. Like, why didn't you just try new maps. What was the reason behind that? And he gave me a pretty legitimate answer. And he said, we really want to, and we've discussed it, but we don't want to put a new map in there and risk costing a player thousands of dollars because of some bug. And he said that the best way that you can probably try and implement a new map would be to have an open qualifier, an open tournament like NASL did, and that was a great success. And that's something that I think a lot of other tournaments should start looking into, especially MLG, because MLG is such an amateur tournament now. It's just like I don't even want to watch it. It's like you don't even have to look at the map pool to know what they're going to play. And so yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, just to build off that a little bit, I was talking to some of the guys at MLG about their map pools and stuff, and they're very much in the same boat where they don't want to be trendsetters. They don't want to risk somebody losing money or somebody having a bad experience because of their map pool. So the criteria that they follow is very, like, the number one thing that they look at is balance, and understandably so, obviously, but in order to have like concrete evidence for balance, especially if you're not like yourself a professional player, or to not have like subjective information, if you want to look at it as objectively as possible, you need statistics on the maps. In order to get statistics, you need recorded matches. You need games to be played, and preferably games with higher level players. And when you look at a map like Metalopolis, it has thousands upon thousands of games played, whereas like a brand new map like Cloud Kingdom, for example, has far, far less than that. And they look at that and go, okay, well, maybe Cloud Kingdom is a better map, but we can't justify that in a tangible way. Aside from players saying, well, Cloud Kingdom is better because Metalopolis is garbage and this map has cool Zelnaga towers and rocks and stuff. To a tournament organizer, you have to keep in mind that there's a bottom line that they have to cut, that they have to meet, right? They need to have that. They need to have the viewership. They need to have the tournament attendance, and they need to get everybody home happy. Now, it's less risky for somebody like that to add a map like Metalopolis, to add a map that's already been figured out, simply because the vast majority of people will still look at a game at Metalopolis and go, okay, well, that was a cool game. I got to see a guy go one-base battle cruises and blow up somebody. That was just fantastic. Or I got to see yet another game where, wow, he hits 200 supply of roaches in 12 minutes, and that's just incredible. Well, to some people that's really interesting. To some people that's not. But the point is, the vast majority of the people they're still going to be happy with the product they're receiving. The players are going to go into this tournament, and they're not going to be like, oh my god, I'm really mad because I played this brand new map that's Amba for Protoss, and now I'm never ever going to play in this tournament again. That hurts them.
Yeah.
And the risk is too much, so there's kind of that catch-22 where how do you get a new map in if everybody has that same attitude?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm going to have a little bit of bias because I do work for MLG, but I guess the better question would be rather than just necessarily hating on any particular tournament for how they do it, if you could give tournaments a suggestion as to how to implement new maps, how would you guys choose to do it? Would you be like, well, maybe you should add one new map because that way with their downvote, if they don't want to play the new map yet, they can downvote it, but it's at least an option. How do you make that transition? Because I know that's one of the catch-22s, right, with new maps, is a tournament wants to be careful, but at the same time, if tournaments don't use the map, you can't really prove the concepts of the balance on the map without it getting used. So either it's got to end up in the Blizzard ladder pool first and then go to tournaments, or it's got to just get played in a tournament. Some tournaments are more willing to risk that than others. Obviously, GSL, since they have probably, I'd say, been one of the initial forerunners in changing up the map pool. They were really one of the first ones to be like, we're not going to use Blizzard maps, we're implementing our own map pool. I think they were definitely one of the leaders to do that. And they've definitely consistently done that. You've seen maps like Belshire Beach that then got turned into Belshire Beach Winter, Metroopolis, Zelnaga Fortress. There was the failed experiment with Calm Before the Storm. So, they're definitely willing to experiment. Do you think that maybe the tournament organizers should worry less about these new maps and just at least try some of them into their map pools and get some of these really, really old maps out of there? Or are they doing the right thing by erring on the side of well, we don't want to totally screw up somebody's tournament and have them hate us and not want to come back?
Well, if you ask me, these map pools should constantly be refreshed. I mean, it's not like well, let's put 5 new maps in the map pool this season, or nothing like that. You should do it very slowly, like 1, maybe 2 maps at a time, depending on, how often you actually switch them out. But I think new maps should always be coming in slowly,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of just what I said earlier. I think open qualifying tournaments is probably the best way to do it. I mean, don't include the map in the actual tournament for the money, but just include it in the qualifier, because at least then, maybe even in just one round, like have a map pool be 10 maps, let's say, in a round of 64, and then have your map in that round only so it can be played once, and then just kick it out and reduce the map pool to 7 maybe, and then go from there.
But then
So
you could still run into the issue where you get like some pro players like, I got knocked out of this tournament because they used this stupid new map that I hated. Because that's definitely happened in the past, where players have gotten mad when there was some particular map, like for instance, way back in the day when SC2 first came out. If Steps of War was in the best of one section of any kind of tournament, people, a lot of especially Zerg players and stuff, would totally flip their lid because they're like, why the hell is this map of all maps in the first round, where now 99% of the Zerg players are going to get knocked out because this map is ridiculous, right?
Yeah, there needs to be a sort of quality control, basically, and but what organization, what entity is actually gonna do that?
Yeah, that's the question.
Who's gonna have that authority? I mean, how do they get the authority?
Yeah, that really is a problem, and there's no easy solution to it. I definitely think that tournaments should be a little bit more lenient with adding new maps, and obviously there has to be some kind of quality control, no matter how you look at it, in what way, shape, or form. I mean, if somebody just walks in and is like, we're going to put in Steps of War RE in our map pool, and what we've done is actually added more rocks, and I think this is great. If there's nobody around to tell them that they're an idiot, then you're going to run into a problem.
Right.
So, I don't know, a lot of the map-making teams out there are very willing to work with them and try to do consulting or whatever you want, but there's obviously some bias there, and there really is no easy solution to the problem. But I think GSL has the right idea, or even the ESP Korean Weekly, for example. Although one of the things the Korean Weekly has going for it is its frequency. So if a map is bad, it's gone next week.
Right.
But being a little bit more lenient and maybe reaching out to some players or something like that, trying to find somebody who is interested in trying to make it better, whether they be internal or external, is definitely the next step. I think the big problem is right now is that there's no public knowledge of any of these organizations trying to get people to test new maps for their leagues or anything like that. I can't think of any of them off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure GSL does or I know they used to through someone's King of the Hill. I forget the name of it now.
Was it the one that Thunder Toss ran?
No, it was one of the Korean commentators for
okay.
GSL.
Yeah,
he ran it. Yeah, that's right.
Gisado.
Oh, Gisado. Okay.
Yeah, Gisado's King of the Hills were one of the main ways that new maps got into the GSL. So I mean, having that kind of reach to professional players, high-level players who can give you the feedback and then go, okay, well, I think this map is good. You should consider adding it to your league, is definitely useful, but you need to be able to pitch something like that.
To piggyback off that, maybe do you think that more of these tournaments like MLG, IPL, NASL should get in touch with some of these weekly type of leagues and stuff and be like, hey, we really want to test this map. You guys have a weekly league where you're only putting up $100 or whatever. You guys have a lot more flexibility because players are going to be less mad if you implement new maps and stuff than if we implement a map and it's broken. Can you guys try out this map or this map for us, and maybe, we'll kick you some sponsorship funding or something? Maybe could that be the way that they should maybe consider going? Maybe kick a couple bucks to one of these daily tournaments or weekly tournaments and say, hey, here's a couple bucks. can you test out this stuff for us and then give us some real concrete numbers on how this goes? I mean, could that maybe be the best way to try and test out those maps without throwing them onto their own tournament where somebody might lose $25,000 over it?
I don't think that it's like a bad idea. I'm not sure if it's the best idea, but look at it from the other side of the coin. Like, what's so bad about something like that? All it really takes is for some people in the community to get together and realize the importance of having a fresh map pool.
Right.
And I think once everybody kind of starts to get on the same page about that, and once, you know, the community at large is like really pissed about watching tournaments with Metalopolis or something like that, and like, the problem is right now is that there's just not enough people really care. If you're a professional player, like if I was a professional player and I'm going to go compete for $25,000, I would rather play Metalopolis because I know it. I've been playing it for 2 years. So I am perfectly okay with competing on that map. Now, the viewers at home might not be so lenient towards it, and that might be killing esports, but for the short term as a professional gamer, it's much easier to just be like, well, I just want to play this map. It's a lot easier. So with that in mind, it takes, I'm not sure what it takes. It's been something I've been trying to figure out basically since I started making StarCraft 2 maps. But like, how do you get more people interested and more people concerned about these map pools so there's more of a community push to have these map pools updated?
I personally think that...
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and so that there's more people in the community working together, like Nursky was saying.
I personally think that one of the other good ways that we can probably try out these new maps is ladder. I think Blizzard took a huge correct step in accepting Core Hall Compound, Ohana, and Cloud Kingdom to the ladder. The chances are high for them doing it again in a few months or so. I think that...
Well, and they're adding a couple of other GSL maps now again, too. Like Metro, I think it was winning, and... Daybreak, yeah, Daybreak.
It's becoming... It's not so much a ladder map pool anymore. It's starting to become a tournament map pool. And I think that is probably going to be one of two doorways into all the other tournaments experimenting with new maps, because one is ladder and two is open qualifiers, which is what NASL did, and they succeeded with that. You know, people know what they're getting themselves into. It's like you already have your set players for the season itself. Here's a qualifier. We're going to have 64 people try out for it. These are the new maps. If you can, you know, cut it out on these maps and get yourself into the season, then hey, you're a worthwhile player and all that kind of jazz. And I think that just open tournaments in general will kind of bring in that fresh map every now and then, because with the way it worked with NASL was, okay, you know, they had TPW maps, which I think they had like 8,
right? And
they're like, okay, if pick your 4 favorite maps, and people would pick that, and then they would say, okay, do you want any of these maps in the season? And people, most of the people said yes. So I think that's just a fresh way to do it. It's risky, but I think open qualifiers or Blizzard just adding them to the ladder is probably the best way to go.
I definitely agree. Blizzard putting them in the ladder is by far the easiest way for a map to build up momentum amongst a community. And I mean, a lot of the things that I've said are built on, I guess, old school logic that I've had for years and years. I shouldn't say years and years. The game's only been out for 2 years, but like up until last October, there was like one community map in the ladder pool. So Blizzard, like up until very recently, has been out of the loop, and now that they're getting into it, I hope to see a lot of these things change and improve.
Or another way where tournaments could add new maps is like IPL did, with a contest and then a tournament, and then they selected the best maps, which were Atlantis Spaceship and Darkness Falls, and it got quite a large amount of test games. So it's not as if it's a totally unknown map with potentially many bugs inside it. So No, I think with the recent change of mind of Blizzard concerning the ladder map pool, they all the tournaments, the big tournaments could aim to follow the maps in the ladder map pool. So the players can have really tested maps, and from time to time, Blizzard would add one or two new maps. So the players could be used to the maps before playing in the big tournaments like MLG, IPL. I think Blizzard has the potential to do that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good point. Before we wrap up this topic, though, I think I did want to hit one thing that I don't think we talked about that much yet in this topic is two things that I wanted to hit on when we were talking about this topic. Any map that has any known balance issue, a good, I think, example from MLG this weekend would be something like Entombed Valley. Or past that, past what you do with maps that do have known balance issues or could have potential known balance issues, what just in general makes, in you guys' opinion, a good map pool for a tournament type of play?
Well, in my opinion, a map pool should be able to tell a story, or it should be able to help tell a story. So you want some maps that are maybe a little bit Zerg-sided, maybe a little bit Protoss-sided, maybe a little bit Terran-sided, so that, you know, if you've got, like, Huck versus Nada or something, just as, like, throwing random names out there, on a Terran-favored map and Huck beats them, it's like, well, wow, there's something to say for that. And I mean, obviously you don't want the maps to be too imbalanced. There's 60-40, etc. We talked about this on the last episode, but stuff like that helps paint a story. And then as far as, like, map diversity is concerned, you want, you know, say in a map pool of 7 or 8 maps, you want maybe some more rush-oriented maps that are a little bit more, like the early game has a heavier emphasis where, you know, maybe some of the rush strategies do a little bit better. So, like, for example, in Brood War, one of the classic things that I like to fall back on was like a map like Destination, where you could do some very aggressive early game strategies and be reasonably successful with them. Whereas on a bigger map, or a map that's more defensible, you see it go a little bit slower and into the late game a little bit quicker. Just to have those kind of differences to shake the map pool up, so you're not just watching the exact same thing every time. Because basically, if you were watching, like, one of the things in a lot of the StarCraft 2 maps right now that they have to have is like a really easy third. So what you see is, like, every game Protoss Forge fast expands, there's a timing attack, and then they take their third. And just about every map, just about every matchup, or I should say every matchup, but it's very consistent, and because of that, I feel like the map pools are taking away something that could help make the overall experience much better.
Any follow-up from that from Iron Man or Super Man? Because I am curious if you guys thought, and Super Man has been really quiet.
Yeah, I call him Superman. And actually, when I first met Prodigy, I called him Prodic. So,
everyone does.
Takes a while. But just to follow up on Prodigy there, I think a couple other things can make a really good map pool. I think when you look at maps like Shakura's Plateau, they have one primary attack path that splits the map. Otherwise, you need air units to go around that. And that main attack path is covered by 2 watchtowers. And then you look at another map like, help me, give me a map where there's like all these attack paths.
Daybreak?
Tal'Darim Altar. That has like a dozen different attack paths with 4 watchtowers. I think that in itself, as a variety, like Prodigy said, you know, how many attack paths that you have. You should have, you know, a variety. You should have maps like Metalopolis, where there's 2 attack paths, or Shakura, where there's 1, and Tal'Darim, which there's like 3 or 4 into like your side of the map. So I mean, that in itself adds a lot of variety. And I think the other thing too is the scenery, and I think that kind of touches on having a story for each map. I think one of the reasons why Ohana is even successful is because it's a beach-themed map. Belshire Beach was the only other map that was like that, and a lot of people complain and they say, you know what, I'm tired of playing on a space map. I'm tired of playing on an asteroid rock.
Oh, that's going to change a little bit before it hits ladder, right?
Right. People are like, I'm tired of playing on a dark map. I like these light, bright maps. I like that, and I think that's one of the reasons why Ohana is being so accepted and
more ambiance,
things like that. So, those are just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the same mind as Prodigy personally. I do think that a map pool should be balanced overall, but they don't. I mean, like, no single. I mean, you touched on this last week. No single map should really be perfectly balanced. I mean, it's just impossible. I mean, not impossible, but really, really hard to do that. And you just can't expect a full map pool to be perfectly balanced. Each map, 50 across the board. So you just have these maps with their certain flavors, and they just sort of happen to be Protoss favored, or they just happen to be Zerg favored, and you build the pool around that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll have a video back up in a second, guys. The Google Hangout thing took a dump on me, so the guys got to join back into it before I can actually have it up. So I'll try and get the video finished in a second. But I'll be doing a little bit of on-the-fly editing, but we'll keep going. So keep finishing you guys' thoughts as I futz with the pictures here.
I think the same thing as Prodigy. Map diversity must be the first, must be the most important thing, because watching the games on different map but with the same gameplay is just boring.
Yeah, I mean, sure, go ahead.
When I say diversity, it's not just only maybe a slightly imbalanced map for one race, but also concerning the expanse. Like many people don't like Antigua, but I think it's a great map because the expand placement is totally different from the other maps. Like sometimes it's hard to take a fourth because you must take another main or another natural. So the game, the overall game is really different.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to touch on quickly here is
Oh man!
without getting trolled by these pictures.
I can't hold it in.
Subaru Man looks like he's taking a mugshot a little bit. Iron Man looks like he's gone insane, and Prodigy has turned into a rabbit.
Oh.
Nursky's camera works perfectly. He is the puppet master.
Oh my.
So, the reason people compete in anything is to find out who's better. Is to find out who's the best at something, right? We've been doing it since the dawn of time. So, when you bring that to the world of StarCraft, you want to find out who the better player is. And I define the better player as somebody who is strictly better at as many different fields of the game as possible. So whether that be executing and or adapting and or defending rush strategies, to going into 45-minute macro games, to adjusting to some weird timing, to be able to play a map where your third is not easy to take, etc. And you can really start to shape that with an interesting map pool. And with something that's like really kind of all the same, it's like Superman said, it's just boring. Whereas if you were to have a map pool that has a lot of relatively different things, I mean, obviously you don't want to have like one map be completely different from another. I've been invited to a Google Hangout. Or I shouldn't say that, but you don't want to have like one map be so different from another that there's like, they're practically not similar at all. Like one base or one map is like only a main base and there's no natural. It's kind of dumb, but as an extreme example, anyway. you can really use your map pool to show who is the better player overall in more different aspects of the game than just strictly executing like the same strategy over and over.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot to be said about that. Once again, sorry guys for the webcams taking a dump suddenly on me. I've been trying to get them back up, but I'm not sure if Google Plus is gonna let me do it. But I am trying to get them back up. Was there anybody who had any other closing thoughts on this before we end up moving to Q&A?
Map
No,
diversity rocks.
What was that?
Map diversity rocks.
Oh,
Yeah.
your map. You want more map diversity. Aha! Aha! I got it. All right, guys, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to see if I can fix the cameras while we are on break. And then when we come back, guys, we're going to be moving to Q&A. So go ahead, start posting your questions in the chat. I do already have, of course, one question ready for you guys to go. But if you have any more questions for the guys, either about our topics today or just in general, go ahead and put them up there. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we talked about today. If you have some sort of map design or even general esports question or just a question about these guys, feel free to go ahead and let me know real quick, guys. So we'll be right back in just a moment. The ice cream man just drove by me. Ding ding. Alrighty. Hello everyone and welcome back to Mappers Episode 2. As you can see, the webcam issue was not able to be figured out. Apparently there's like a 1 hour limit on Google Hangouts, and like Skype wants you to have a premium service, and they didn't tell you ahead of time that they were going to be doing that as far as I ever saw from Skype messages. So just today when we were going to start the show, we get on Skype, we can't get webcams up because none of us happen to have a premium Skype account yet because frankly didn't need one in the past. So we switched to Google Hangouts. We're like, all right, we'll use that. It's free. And then there's apparently an hour limit on that, so they just shut you down after a minute. And then they're just, we're sorry, we seem to be taking too long to process your request, it tells me. So technology's not working with us that well today, but we'll do our best to make do with what we have. We have a couple of pictures. I will try and get some better pictures of these guys for the future, so that they're not a rabbit, a crazy man, and future criminal.
This really makes me want to cry.
But we do have some questions, so I'm going to start out with the question that was posted earlier. I saved it here. Let me see. It was asked by Goldie Cheese, I do believe, and he asked, what do people think of Metropolis? He thought that it is balanced but promotes turtling to 5 base versus 5 base which tends to be long and somewhat boring, so it could suffer essentially from the calm before the storm problem, where calm before the storm got really boring really fast just because it was like just not a lot happened on that map. It wasn't that it was necessarily a bad map so much as just a boring map, I think was its biggest issue. So what do you guys think about Metropolis? Oh, that wasn't Goldie Cheese. My bad. It was somebody, though, who had to leave. I'll find out who it was later.
My stance on Metropolis is that, from a player standpoint, is fantastic. You get to do all of the things a macro-oriented player wants to do. You get to take your third, you get to expand and do late-game stuff, and that's all fine and good. But from a commentator and spectator point of view, I think the map, and map maker point of view even, I think the map is garbage. It's... From a map maker point of view, if you need to block a spawn position, your concept was flawed right from the get-go, and it's just bad, strictly speaking. From a commentator and spectator point of view, I mean, if I'm going to cast a game, and I'm basically casting, all right, so now he's throwing down his 5th factory, and he's making more Thors, and he's almost at 200-200. Okay, they're at 200-200, and now they're still not moving out. What's going on?
Being somebody who does commentary, I can straight up say that one of the hardest things to do is when a game is utterly boring, but you are acting like it is the most exciting thing that you have ever seen. Because you don't want the viewers to be bored, right? I mean, you don't want to be fake, but you don't want the viewers to be bored. So it's not that you're faking excitement. It's more like you're doing your darndest to find excitement in what is otherwise a somewhat mundane game, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, as a spectator, I mean, even if you're just to watch the game analytically and just kind of look at it, I mean, there's still not that much actually going on the map. There's not a lot of points on the map that are really important to control, let alone, like, a lot of different ways to harass bases. I mean, really the only thing that map has going for it in the late game is, like, the way the armies dance around between, like, the little rings that are... that kind of, like, circles the map between all of the expansions. You just kind of like bounce between like your main and your natural, and the main and the natural on the other side. I mean, that really is like the start and finish of the entire map. There's nothing else to it.
Anybody else?
To me, this map, honestly, I actually saw it being posted, like when it was posted, and I was like shaking my head when I saw it. I'm like, no. I mean, I know LS Prime. Well, I mean, I'm a mod, and he asked me to change his titles a lot, and I'm friendly with him. He knows I like him, but honestly, I don't like this map at all. It's just honestly, it almost represents exactly what FRB does not represent. It's really no.
Yeah, I don't like. I mean, sure, it's a nice map and everything like that, but it's basically Metalopolis with 2 more bases in, well, not 2 more bases, but the goals are changed to blue in the middle, and then you got islands, which is something that a lot of people don't like. So,
well, they do have
if you don't like,
on them.
But if you don't like Metalopolis and you don't like islands, and you put those 2 together, it's kind of like, okay. I mean, from my point of view, at least, that's the way I see it. I've actually never played it, and plus the map is freaking huge. It feels like it's a mile across.
It is a large map.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to follow up on Metropolis, I mean, I guess like the major concerns you guys would have is, despite the creep tumors on the islands, you're not a big island fan, and you feel like the map might be a little too expansive.
I don't mind the islands themselves. I think creep tumors is not the right way to go about it. I mean, it kind of sucks that Mules blew up all the fact that you could just mineral block something, but I don't know, creep tumors, like, they really screwed Protoss over. Terran can just, like, blow them up and then lift their command center over a little bit later. But, like, Protoss has to drop something there, get a Void Ray and an Observer over there, and then blow it up, and then wait until all of the creep is gone. And, I mean, as a Protoss player, like, what that says to a Protoss player is you just can't take that island. It's just not for you. And to Terran, kind of the same, but slightly less so. And then to Zerg, it's basically like, well, all I just have to do is get a way to get a drone over there. And I guess some detection to actually kill the creep tumor. But as for the rest of the map, I definitely think, yeah, it's just too big, and it doesn't, like, leading up to the late game, there's really nothing interesting about it. There's like an early timing attack to try and do a little bit of damage to the natural expansion to see if you can secure a small advantage, which is what I've seen a lot in the Korean Weekly and then some of the other leagues. But like beyond that, it's most players are just like, okay, I'm securing my natural. Now I'm going to take my third, and then the fourth and the fifth in very rapid succession afterwards, and that's like the whole map.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I dislike about Metropolis is the third can be so easily cut off, where on Metalopolis it can't be. It's connected to your natural. So, and plus a third is more safer on Metropolis, but it's just so easy to cut it off. You just go up to the natural door and then completely cut off that supply line and everything like that, and it's just so. It's just, I don't know. It's a map that encourages a lot of air, and to be honest, Prodigy, I don't think I've ever seen a Zerg or Protoss take the islands.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's the other big thing.
Well, it's a little bit tough for Zerg because you don't always want to get drops. Like it's a hefty investment to get drops.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's tough for everyone, honestly. I don't know if all of our listeners understand the circle syndrome theory, but basically, if I wanted to make an island that nobody would take, I would put it right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Basically.
I agree completely.
All right, so I think we're going to go on to the next question now. We actually have a guy who was Goldie Cheese in chat, but he says his name is Dakota. He actually had a question specifically for Barrin. He was asking, do you think that the 6 mineral 1 high yield gas reduces the amount of workers and time it takes to saturate a base to with the amount of time it takes to saturate a base, does this encourage players to attack more rather than sit back because there's less they have to do? So I guess the TLDR would be, does faster saturation equal faster attacking and more attacking?
Well,
From what
it's a lot more than that. The more attacking is it's how do I put this? This is a little complicated. There's just so many factors that go into this. That factor by itself, you could say that yeah, it definitely does encourage attacking more. And it encourages you to expand more, which makes you even more vulnerable too. So they go hand in hand, that factor by itself.
All right, thank you. And then, by the way, I want to mention that first question was actually asked by Oxagenetic. That wasn't actually Goldie who asked that first question. This last question was by Dakota, aka Goldie. Now I have another question. Sumadin asking a question to everybody. A lot of old Blizzard maps had quite a unit layout with other problems that got them removed. So basically, it had problems with the layout of the map, is what I'm assessing from there. He used Kulos Ravine, Scrap Station as some examples. Does he think that any of the current map makers could potentially fix the issues that these maps have, and like, would you even bother fixing the issues these maps had and re-releasing them in some way, or do you feel it's better just to let a sleeping dog lie and would you just not bother?
Some of the maps have like cool concepts, like Scrap Station, for example.
Yeah.
But like, there's two big things to map making, right? Is like, you can come up with a great idea, but if you can't execute it, it's kind of pointless. And I think that's where Blizzard really falls apart. Blizzard has a lot of really cool ideas in a lot of their maps, but they're just horrible at executing them. So, for example, Scrap Station was kind of built similar to like Paranoid Android. It has that alternate path that you can take that severely reduces the rush distance, but in order to actually take advantage of it, you have to break down a series of rocks, so it doesn't really come into play until the later stages of the game. That's a really cool idea when I just say that, right?
Right.
But when you build it like Blizzard did, where you have like that 45-degree symmetry, there's a ton of wasted space, there's like even the natural expansion is not easy to take. You have the double wide or the triple wide ramp. Like, there's so many things about that map that were built wrong that if you were to just basically take the same idea of a map that has like a smaller path but is blocked by rocks, or a shorter path that's blocked by rocks that doesn't come into play until the later stage of the game, and then you build a map around that kind of idea, then I think you could do something quite like very, very interesting with that. And the same could maybe be said for Kulas Ravine or Steps of War or whatever. But it really depends on like what part of the map you want to focus on, kind of explore some more. So yes and no, I guess.
Okay. Anybody else?
What was the question?
He was talking about the concept of taking old Blizzard maps and essentially fixing the issues they had that got them removed, like Kulas and Scrap Station. Is it worth, like, would you guys want in any way, shape, or form to fix these maps and then re-release them, or would you rather just leave them?
I think I'm pretty much in the same boat as Prodigy. So.
Yeah, I don't think maps should be given too much time, really. Honestly, I want to say 6 months, but I know that's not really going to be realistic the way we have it right now. But I would say 1 year. After 1 year, a map just needs to go away. It really does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have time for one more question. So I'm going to ask this question from Lurkerling in chat. He says, what's your opinion on maps with more than one natural expansion? It seems like all maps have a clear flow. Player 1 expands here, Player 2 expands there. It's even called the natural base. He was thinking that maybe maps should have more options on them available to the players, where you don't have the natural and then the natural third and the natural fourth, and then maybe around the fourth or fifth, like it becomes a little less clear-cut, but typically like you get that, well, I take this base, and then I take this base, and then I have options for my fourth base. Do you guys feel like it would benefit maps, I guess is what he's asking, to have more options earlier in the game? Or should we stick more to the more standard, just here's your main, here's your natural, there's your third type of formula?
I think linear expansions, which is just a straight line, is fine. I think there should be maps like that, but I think there should also be maps that you take your natural, and now you have two options for your third. You can go to one in front of your main or one next to your natural. And stuff like that actually just promotes different play styles and different defensive capabilities. It also encourages different types of engagements in areas that you normally wouldn't have an engagement, and things like that. It just promotes a different play style. I mean, when you look at a map like TPW Odyssey, you have a linear expansion, a concave expansion, and your last expansion goes up to the enemy's main base. And so it's like this giant oval of bases, and all the fighting's in between. That's fine and dandy, but it's the same thing. You know where they're going to expand. You know how to deny it because you know where it's going to be at, and things like that. Whereas if you look at Crosspoint, for example, or Tal'Darim Altar, you have your initial third, but you can take the one that wraps around the corner near the middle side of the maps, where it's covered by line of sight. And it sets it up differently. Now you have a different way of engaging your opponent, and nice cat, and things like that. So I think that you should have a variety, and so yeah, that's my thought.
And about his question about one natural, I think he means the that cat. It annoys me. So I was talking. I think he means like the other possibility of overnature is like a backdoor nature, like it was in Crevasse. But if you want to make two naturals, I don't think it can be good because it would make two entrances to the main. That's why. This is why. This is how I see the question, and this would be completely broken for really quick rushes like six ball. A player would never be able to block both ramps or something like that.
Honestly, if I felt that there was enough things to do to the early game, just the first few bases that are actually viable and fun and acceptable or whatever, if there was enough of that, I wouldn't even bother with FRB, because honestly, the main reason I do this is because I want more options in map making. Personally.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, Matt, there should be, I guess just to go back to maybe map pools here. Again, it really comes down to that variance in your map pool. So maybe you want to have some maps that have a really, really clear expansion path, and then some maps or maybe some more of the expansions are kind of more conflicted, and just to shake things up a little bit. I think both of them definitely have a place in StarCraft 2 and in a map pool and stuff like that, but I think we've pretty much got like the strict, like very clear flow maps figured out at this point. They don't really add a whole lot that's really new to the game. So I don't know, I would like to see the map making community as a whole kind of move away for those and start to get a little bit more experimental, but we'll see how that goes, I guess.
Yeah, see, what I like about FRB is, like Barrin said, is it creates more opportunities for map makers to express more in their maps. I usually make two-player maps. With FRB, I can make bigger two-player maps. I can add more bases. I can make the terrain more or less choky, because with more bases, it kind of matters now. It's not just like, well, you have to find that fine line right there. So, yeah, I just think that FRB just brings out more in map making in terms of how you can put in the layouts and how to where to put your bases more and things like that. So I definitely agree with him there.
Yeah, right now we are stuck with the third must be close to the natural, because Protoss can move very far away from natural, so it restricts really a lot.
Where'd you go?
Uh-oh.
We lose you, Super Man?
What?
Oh, you didn't sound like you were done with your thought.
What do you mean?
It said it sounded like you weren't done with your thought, mate. Never mind. You know what? I think on that note, show's starting to go a little over, so I think we're gonna actually wrap things up. So we're gonna move into our shoutouts and closings here, and we'll let everybody get their 2 seconds in here. Switching that, going to cross off the Q&A. So thank you everybody who has given us some questions today. They were pretty good questions. Hopefully everybody got at least a somewhat satisfactory answer to their questions. But let's move into shoutouts. I guess we'll start with Super Man.
Thank you for tuning in. And below my head you can see my Twitter. And I tweet sometimes.
What a good promotion. I occasionally tweet, at least once a month, I promise.
It's kind of true.
Anything else, mate?
What?
What is going on?
I don't know, everybody talked at once, so all I hear is like, bleh! Is it my turn?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Alright, so be sure to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ProdigySC. It's right there on the screen in front of the bunny picture on the bottom left. I tweet about all kinds of things. StarCraft 2, etc. My latest tweet was about how the wonderful Taja has recently been acquired. I won't spoil that for anybody, but I'll just say that a particular member of ESV had a little something to do with that. So shout out to that. The Korean Weekly is still in development, but be sure to follow twitter.com/Korean Weekly for some updates on that. I am, of course, a commentator, and that is also where maps from the ESV map making team are mostly played on. As I think this upcoming season, we're definitely looking at a very exclusive ESV map pool here, but that's really up to Diamond at the end of the day. Beyond that, follow me on twitch.tv/ProdigyTV. I stream a lot of Tribes Ascend, so if you're into FPS, then that's you can watch me blow people up, because I really like doing that.
Yeah, just a little bit of an announcement, and hopefully Diamond doesn't snipe me for this, but DreamHack is looking to use Ohana, Cloud Kingdom, and Metropolis pretty soon, so
Nice.
we can all look forward to that.
Metropolis.
And so yeah, that's a nice big announcement. DreamHack is starting to jump the ball right there with accepting more a variety of maps and things like that. And they did mention that they wanted to start doing more map work in general. So that's definitely a big plus for all of us as a community. Something that we can look forward to. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. It's in front of my crazy face. I wish I had that. Let's get ready to rumble cat or the kitty. So
So you got
yeah.
the normal face.
It's Ironman SC2. I will be sure to tweet when I feel like it. And also, I do map streaming on ESV TV when I have the time and when I have work to do. So if you ever see ESV TV go on live, it's probably me. So check it out sometime if you want. So yeah, that's my corner right there.
And Barrin, got any shout-outs,
follow
mate?
me on Twitter at twitter.com/tlbarrin.
All one word?
Yes, tlbarrin. Shout out to Emin Dakota, because that guy, he's been following me. Following the FRB thing, and he's like a good player, and he's been supporting me a lot. And he's the guy who asked me that question, so I hope I answered that all right. And guys, please play the FRB maps. Just give it a chance. I'm positive most of you will like it. Most of you have so far, so yeah.
Yeah, I tried them out with a buddy. I quite enjoyed it, actually. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Cool.
Alright, guys, so that's going to wrap things up for episode number 2. Of course, follow me on Twitter as well. You can do that at VPNursky, obviously twitter.com in front of it. Hope everybody tunes in next week. Once again, hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Obviously, we'll have a whole new set of topics next week. Thank you very much to all of our hosts, Super Roo-Man, Prodigy, and Iron Man, and then, of course, our special guest today, Barrin, for being on the show. And then thank you very much, everybody who tunes in, whether you check this out on our bots because maybe you can't be on, or because you tune in live, because we have a couple more viewers this show, and I hope that it'll increase. I hope people spread the word. So unless anybody else has any closing notes, we're going to get out of here.
Tell your friends about the show. Tell all of them. Tell your mom. Tell your dad. Tell your uncle. Tell your dog. Because you'd be surprised how many friends your dog has.
Iron Man's dog,
honestly,
man.
Honestly, my dog started gagging because of my picture, so I don't think she'll be tuning in next week.
Make them watch.
Alright, guys, well, that's going to wrap it up here for Mappers Episode 2. Going to play a little bit of music as we get out for the day. So thank you, everybody, much for tuning in once again. We will see you guys next week. Peace out for now, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Later.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Superman.
Sorry.